I don't even think I can fully express how happy I am to have baseball back. Baseball's just good for the soul. Now I get it. Baseball's not usually good for the soul of Pittsburgh Pirate fans. And many entered this season thinking baseball wouldn't be good for them, wouldn't be good for their mental or physical health, being a Pittsburgh Pirate fan. And I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. This is going to be a journey. This is going to be a pretty lackluster, bad season for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'd be shocked if it's anything but a quote-unquote bad year for the Pittsburgh Pirates. But on this episode of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, I'm your host, Mike Asti, as always, and I'm here to break down 5 things to watch for if you're a Pittsburgh Pirate fan. So again, I know some are going to celebrate if they don't lose 100 games, and I'm not here to tell you or condone that you should be celebrating if the team simply doesn't lose 100 games. Losing 98, losing 95 games, still a really bad year and in no way something to celebrate for. But it's a journey. It is an admitted rebuild process now, which at least your management structure is willing to admit that now. My biggest problem with the last regime, okay, they were rebuilding. There were points they should have been rebuilding, but they wouldn't admit it. They treated the fans like they were idiots. This regime's been there and done it before. Ben Cherington's won a ring before. Granted, much tougher to win with the Pirates than the Boston Red Sox, but willing to say this is a rebuilding process. Acted like it's a rebuilding process in the offseason, and I actually think won a few of those deals to properly rebuild this team. But all of that means this is year one of the rebuild, and all of that means kind of equated 2010 in comparison to that journey to get 2013 and 2015, and then, yes, they tore it down too soon. But they had to get there at one point, and that was at least success getting there and having those couple years. So say this is 2010, say this is going to be really, really bad. Maybe it'll be something in the future. Maybe it'll take 2, 3, 4 years to get there, but they're rebuilding. It's going to be a bad year, though, overall. But even though it's going to be a bad year, there are still keys. And I'm using the word keys here because my number one key, of course, connects to that term. But there are still keys to watch for. There are still reasons to watch this team. And no, I don't get paid to say that. I'm not giving you a sales pitch to watch the team. Do what you want. But if you do watch Pirates baseball this year, these are 5 things to watch for. These are 5 things that you want to watch for, keep your eyes on, and it'll help you understand the rebuild. It'll help you know whether this team is headed in the right direction, because this team's not going to the playoffs, okay? Throw me on Old Takes Exposed, strike me down if this team somehow contends and gets near that in September. It's not going to happen, okay? It's going to be a bad year overall, historically speaking. But there's reasons to watch this team, okay? And again, there are these 5 things, these 5 keys to watch for as a Pittsburgh Pirate fan to really see whether or not your team is headed in the right direction. Because this is an important season in what now is an admitted rebuild now under Ben Cherington. So another rebuild, I get it for you fans, but this is the first one under this regime. It's a new rebuild, and it's a rebuild that's going to take some time, but these are 5 points to watch for. In no particular order, but I'm going to leave the last one, my last key, the most important one. And this connects more than maybe just the Pirates. Maybe this is something a national fan or two, a fan around the league should watch for. And if you want to watch a Pirate game, this would be why. But in no particular order, before getting to that one, here are the other 4. So these are the 5 keys to watch for if you are a Pittsburgh Pirate fan here during this 2021 season, which, again, I admit is going to be a bad one. But maybe there's reason for some optimism if some of these work out. So in no particular order, and this is a big one, okay? Bryan Reynolds. Watch for Bryan Reynolds. And watch for Bryan Reynolds to see where he is. Is he last year's Brian Reynolds, that during a global pandemic of a season, he was sluggish. He flat out sucked. He wasn't good. He wasn't nearly the all-star or a building block of your future that you thought he was a year earlier. So is Brian Reynolds closer to 2019 Brian Reynolds, where he was a double-double machine? And I mean multiple doubles in games. I'm not talking about the basketball stat. He put up great numbers, especially for a guy that most fans hadn't heard of prior to that season. Kind of lightning in a bottle. He became that building block that year. Some could have thought at that time he would be the face of the franchise moving forward, especially after some deals were made after that point. And I'm not saying Brian Reynolds needs to be that guy again. I'm not saying I need Brian Reynolds to be 2019 Brian Reynolds again. But Brian Reynolds can't be 2020 Brian Reynolds either. So watch to see which Brian Reynolds you're getting. Which one is the real Brian Reynolds? Will the real Brian Reynolds please stand up? Is he more of the 2019 Brian Reynolds, or is he more of the 2020 Brian Reynolds? If he's more of the 2020 Brian Reynolds, it's going to be rough. He wouldn't be a building block then. You got a flash in the pan, and that's going to be rough for you moving forward. If he's 2019 Brian Reynolds, you got a building block, and that's fantastic. If he's in the middle, if he's closer to 2019, which I think is more realistic, you probably can't realistically expect him to be 2019 Brian Reynolds ever again. That might have been a flash in the pan. That might have been that Jack Wilson year where he was flirting for the batting title most of the season. But that doesn't mean that you have to get 2020 Brian Reynolds either. Brian Reynolds needs to be a good, serviceable player. He needs to hit, most importantly. He needs to be part of the lineup that is productive. He needs to be a key member of the offense. And this is an offense that doesn't have much pop, but does have a potential to have some quality hitters. Brian Reynolds needs to be one of them. Needs to. But watch for Brian Reynolds. That is a major key of the progression of Brian Reynolds. Which Brian Reynolds you think you're getting. Which Brian Reynolds shows up this year. This year, very important individually for him. And again, doesn't have to be all-star, doesn't have to be 2019, doesn't have to be setting records like he was 2 years ago, but needs to be much better than he was last year. Now, this is a weakness of the team. Another key here in what to watch for. This might be rough. This is a weakness of the team for sure, even if they hit. Some are expecting them to hit more than others think they're going to hit, but if this team hits, if Brian Reynolds gets back to where he was 2 years ago, Josh Bell and that pop is gone, of course, in D.C., but if Ke'Bryan Hayes can pick up where he was last year at the end of last year and continue that progression this year. I'll get more to him later on. If Newman, whoever else, Jacob Stallings has been that underrated player, and he's actually stabilized himself as a starting catcher, kind of an unsung hero of this team, almost comes off as the heart and soul of this team. So he's an underrated guy to watch. He's not one of my five, though. But if this team hits, it's still going to be held back by the pitching. So what to watch for is the pitching staff in general, mostly the starters, and does anybody emerge to be some semblance of a pitcher you can build around and can feel comfortable with moving forward? And I'm not saying there's an ace on this staff. Chad Kuhl got the opening day start, was the last opening day starter named in all of baseball, which tells me that Shelton and everybody else wasn't really sure. And there's not an ace here. There's not really a number one. There's not really a number two. Chad Kuhl is a number three on most good teams out there. Okay, Tyler Anderson, we're talking about the next start. Again, these are middle-of-the-road starters. Even veterans like Joe Musgrove, who was okay in the beginning of last season but didn't get the run support, he's gone. He's in San Diego. This is a young pitching staff. Chad Kuhl coming off of an injury 2 years ago. Last year, spotty starts. His family didn't get to see him pitch since 2018 until this year. So, again, the pitching staff, you're not expecting much from them. The pitching staff is going to be what holds this team back. Namely, the starting rotation is going to be what holds the team back. It's going to be why the team's bad. I don't think much more is expected. And I wouldn't be surprised if others are moved in and out of this rotation. And the rotation is shaken up and spit out and thrown around a bunch of times. Maybe some relievers get some starts. Would be interesting to see how they're handled at the end of the season, especially. How the pitching staff is handled from August on is what I really want to watch for, because last year, the pitching staff, and many of those guys are gone now, But last year, the pitching staff kind of went buck wild that last month of the season. They already clearly knew they were out of the race, but early on, they're still throwing their best stuff trying to win. It got to the end of the season, and the Pirates pitching staff was handling it like spring training. You were seeing pitchers throw pitches they don't normally throw, just trying to throw something at the wall, see what sticks. It was a dartboard out there for the pitching staff, almost handling it like spring training. So, again, I want to see how quickly the pitching staff goes into that spring training mode where it really is an exhibition for them and they're just trying to see what they can throw and kind of figure something out and see if they can improve at something, not caring as much about the individual stats. But also, can anyone emerge? Can it be Chad Kuhl? Can it be somebody else? No one is thinking there's an ace here. Nobody has the Garrett Cole pressure where the argument in the past was when he was in the Pirates before going to the Astros and then the Yankees and becoming that ace that many thought he would be with Pittsburgh. When is he going to be an ace? Is he an ace? That whole debate. Again, Glass now, that debate of should he be more than he's with Pittsburgh? Could he ever be an ace? We find out with the Rays that, yeah, he can be. He can be more than what he was with Pittsburgh. And you can say what you want about pitchers being better after leaving and that whole development. But again, a different regime now here. And I don't think any of those guys are going to be in those conversations now. No one's thinking Chad Kuhl is going to go leave the Pirates and all of a sudden look at a Hall of Fame career. But does anybody step up? Can anybody be the leader of this rotation? Can anybody be the guy that at least would stabilize himself as a legit number 2 or 3 on any team? Okay, he's forced to be a 1 on the Pirates because they're bad. But can anybody really own that role and they'll be the leader of this pitching staff? That's a key to watch for, to say the very, very least. But I think we can all agree the pitching staff is going to be a weakness for this Pirates team and going to hold them back if everything goes well offensively. So out of my keys here so far as we trek towards the number 1 key, wink, wink, Brian Reynolds. Absolutely a big one. Got to watch Brian Reynolds, see if you get more of last year, you get more of 2 years ago, you get something in the middle. You got to be better than he was a season ago, of course. That's a big deal to the offense, not only this year, but moving forward and building the franchise. And if you can have him be a part of the future of this franchise, at least in terms of it being productive, or if you need to try to get some value or what's going on with Brian Reynolds. Big thing to watch for. The pitching staff, a weakness of this team, but can anybody emerge? And when do they go into that spring training mode? Because that happened last year. Maybe it was because it was COVID. It happened earlier than you would have thought when that season was progressing. We'll see when they get into that this year, since you're figuring they won't be in the race at the end of the season. The bullpen, sticking with the pitching staff. Bullpen's something else to watch because I think the bullpen surprisingly could be a strength of this team. The starters, maybe not so much, but I think the bullpen's going to be a strength of this team. May not throw kerosene on the fire as often as maybe a season ago. We know the controversy of the closer role the last 2 years. We won't even have to get into that. And I don't know if someone's going to necessarily emerge to grab the bull by the horn to be that guy moving forward for 2, 3, 4 years down the road. But not many great teams in baseball even keep a closer that long because it is a position you can move in and out of. You're not going to pay that position big money. But overall, as a pen, it appears can be potentially a strength of the Pirates. Is that correct? Is that a strength of this Pirates team? Is there a reliever that steps up? What does the bullpen do? Because the bullpen made it worse sometimes last year. Can the bullpen make it better? Can the bullpen hold leads? And, of course, going back to the offense with Brian Reynolds, can the offense support the pitching staff, whether that be the starters and the bullpen? But the bullpen, another point to watch for as well. And then this is big. This isn't so much about the future now, but it's about the present. It's about this year. It's about mid-season. It's about what couldn't happen last year. And this is a player, again, it's Gregory Polanco, one of the veterans of this team. El Cafi, Gregory Polanco. A popular figure years ago, had that flash in the pan season years ago that many think that 2 years ago stretch by Brian Reynolds might have been a flash in the pan year. He can prove those fans wrong if he picks it up this year. Gregory Polanco's never really proven anybody wrong with that estimation of several years ago when he had that flash in the pan type of season. That was a great year. He's not been that guy since, and yes, he's been injured tons since, but last year he had a chance to prove people wrong. He had a chance to bring value for himself. They eventually traded Josh Bell, but I feel like Polanco would have been moved too, whether it be midseason, whether it be for the pennant stretch, whether it be after the season like Bell. At some point, he would have been moved, but his value, like Bell, who didn't have a great year either, Brian Reynolds didn't have a great year either. Brian Reynolds, of course, seemingly was going to be around anyway. But Gregory Polanco, even more a veteran, been here around the block over a couple regimes now. He knows the way of the world here. He's not going to be more than what he was a few years ago. He's not going to get back to that point. He's not even going to really be probably a starter on most really, really good teams. He can be a spark plug for you. Maybe he can be more than that. I think he can help a team. He is still young enough, even if he's old, for this Pirates group and for the future of this team. But I think it's run its course with him. It's pretty clear what you're going to get out of Gregory Polanco. He can have those great moments. The fans do like him. He's a fun-loving guy. He's not a legitimate force in terms of at least a hitter. Certainly defensively, maybe he can be that guy. But struggled so much with the bat last year where he was hitting below the Mendoza line for most of the season. And, of course, again, it was a truncated year with COVID and such a reduced schedule. But the average is what it is. He picked it up a little bit towards the stretch last year. Down the stretch last season, he did hit better. He actually did have some at-bats that were part of winning baseball down the stretch. No one really cared because the team was well out of the race then and everyone checked out, certainly beyond Pirate fans, and even some of them checked out. But he picked it up down the stretch last year, and if he can carry that over into this season, if this season can be better, he's somebody more than anybody else that needs to have a quality first half of the year to help this team because he's that guy midseason that's going to be dealt. Okay, there's no way he's ending this season on the Pirates. If he does, that's bad because that means he had a poor season. They couldn't get value for him, and they're going to try to redo the value and then have some improvement on a trade in terms of value in the offseason, like what happened last year with Josh Bell. They went into last year thinking they're going to trade Bell at the midseason point. Granted, they didn't know COVID then, but even once they knew COVID, they were thinking of still moving him. He didn't play well enough to beef his value up at that point. They eventually moved him anyway. But if Polanco's moved in the offseason, probably means he had a poor first half and they couldn't get value midseason, or they lost out on the deal because they're just going to trade him anyway. I'd imagine he's moved. I imagine he's that veteran piece that can bring value. And even if he's not moved, if he has a solid first half of the year, he should be moved because he's that veteran piece that, again, can bring value if he performs and hits a little bit better than last year. But Gregory Polanco needs to be much better to bring that value. So he's somebody to watch for to see how he plays, what value he has. He's not a part of the future. He won't be on this team in 5 years, in 3 years, probably not after this season. But can he bring value? What type of value is it? And he needs to be better than last year to bring that value. And then, as we trek towards number one, so again, Brian Reynolds, the pitching staff, in terms of the starters, really, the bullpen, Gregory Polanco individually, because he's going to be that player that could bring value, the veteran piece, and you want him dealt since you're in the midst of a rebuild, and you can love the schedule you want. You can say the division's weak all you want. It is. The NL Central has been weaker than it's been in years, but that's not going to put the team in the playoffs. Losing less than 100 games really doesn't matter. The wins and losses don't matter this year. But the number one key, and it's in his name, and I think you all knew who I was getting to anyway, the number one key for this Pirates team this year, when healthy, is Key Brian Hayes. Last year, came up, got that cup of coffee, and set the world on fire, even got some national recognition on the hot start he had entering Major League Baseball. Didn't matter for the team. They were well out of it at that point, but he reinvigorated the fans. The Pirates were a headline story for a week or so, going towards Steelers training camp, all because of Key Brian Hayes. He has that swag. He has that personality. There are some saying he should be the face of baseball in the future, like Fernando Tatis Jr., who, of course, has been better and has proven himself on the field. Mike Trout should get more promotion, but, of course, has had the best start to a career in really baseball history. And Bryce Harper has the personality, getting kind of back to form last year after leaving the Nationals, not to the MVP guy that he was years earlier, but those are kind of the faces of baseball right now, or should be if you throw Trout in, of course, because he's potentially on the pace to be the greatest baseball player of all time overall, even though he's not marketed. That's an argument for another day. But Key Brian Hayes has the personality of Tatis, has the personality of Bryce Harper. He has the personality of a young Vlad Guerrero. Those personality players, if they can perform and help their teams, those are who you want as the faces of baseball. And while you can laugh and joke and say a Pirate as face of Major League Baseball, it happened briefly with Andrew McCutchen. During that 13-15 period, he was one of the faces of Major League Baseball. Maybe not the guy, but one of the guys. He was an MVP playing center. He was the face of baseball for a year or so. He was one of the best players in the league, driving a good team. He was marketable. Ken Griffey Jr. was talking about him being that guy, him in today's game. Now, of course, that didn't continue. He's now with Philadelphia, and he left the Pirates, and it didn't continue. But I'm not saying Ke'Bryan Hayes is going to go to the Hall of Fame or even going to be what McCutchen was, because he won an MVP, and McCutchen was a great player on some playoff teams. But it's possible. He certainly could pick himself up from where he was last season and get near that this year. And you don't have to expect that this year, of course, immediately to have an all-star year. 30-30 does not have to occur right now. Gold Glove play at the hot corner does not have to occur right now. It would all be nice, but he's still very, very young, and a Rookie of the Year would be great, would be nice. But again, it doesn't have to happen. What you need to watch for with Ke'Bryan Hayes, your key is watching his progression, okay? An all-star season would be fantastic. A Rookie of the Year season would be fantastic. Picking himself up to where he was last year would be even more than fantastic. And becoming the face of the league, which can happen quickly like it did with Tatis Jr., would be great as well. And all of that would help the game overall, Major League Baseball overall, and of course the team, even if it doesn't win. That would bring the casual fans somebody to get to the ballpark for. Ke'Bryan Hayes would be that guy for the casual fan to come to the ballpark when they can be at the ballpark, and would be that guy to watch for. Ke'Bryan Hayes' progression in terms of being the guy for casual fans or fans in general to watch for, to cheer for, to be proud of, to be that all-star for the Pirates, to be the face of the team, maybe one of the faces of Major League Baseball, and to be the reason why you watch a Pirate game, whether it be on TV or at the ballpark. So Ke'Bryan Hayes' progression, having him show he's still going to be good, having him get better, having him cycle through pitching staffs and still get hits, having him show he can flash the leather and play solid defense too, having him be that building block. Ke'Bryan Hayes is the number one thing to watch for this Pirate season. Wins and losses don't matter. You know they're rebuilding, but Ke'Bryan Hayes is the guy. And what you need to determine as a fan, what you need to watch for is that right? Is Ke'Bryan Hayes the guy? Is he what he was last year at the end of the season? Is he close to that? Can he be the face of this team? Can he be the best player on a team that makes the playoffs? Can he be the next McCutchen? And can Ke'Bryan Hayes be among the faces of all of baseball, at least on the Pirates? Can that be the case? Can he progress to that? Is Ke'Bryan Hayes as good as advertised? And can we see that for a longer period of time than, of course, at the end of 2020? That's the number one thing to watch for. Ke'Bryan Hayes is the key to the keystone, is the key to the Pittsburgh Pirates season this year. His progression is the key this year. Again, wins and losses don't matter. Losing less than 100 doesn't matter. Ke'Bryan Hayes matters. He's the key to this team, to this franchise, to the future of this franchise. If he gets hurt, if he gets seriously hurt, if he sucks, if he can't get it done, if he's not close to last year, if he putters off, if he can't cycle through staffs, if he can't hit, if he can't play defense, I'm not predicting that to be him. But if that's the case, it would sink the future. They would need to find that guy again. It would put themselves back years. That's how serious it is. He needs to be the guy. He needs to play well. He needs to be that next Pirates all-star. He needs to be that next face of the franchise. He needs to progress to that this year. You need to see flashes of that this year, even if it's not a full all-star season. And Ke'Bryan Hayes is clearly the key to the Pittsburgh Pirates, not only this season, but moving forward. And he is that guy that they desperately need to be able to build around. So I know it's not going to be a good year. Any of you who think it's going to be a good year from watching the opening series or a few of those, okay, you're just living in denial. Your Pirates glasses on. You're drunk on some Pirate fandom. You want to be optimistic. Go ahead. But in all reality, it's not going to be a good year. This team's not going to be a contender this year. They are building to something. They're admitting that now. It'll be a journey to get there. It'll be years in the making. They probably won't be good next year, maybe not even the year after that. But there's reason to watch this team. Okay, that's my sales pitch. There are 5 keys to watch this team. Ke'Bryan Hayes, Brian Reynolds, can Gregory Polanco get you something? Pitching staff, will anybody step up? And the bullpen, is it actually a strength of this team? Those are the 5. Those are the 5 key things to watch in this 2021 Pirates season.